The desert sun beat down mercilessly on Edwards Air Force Base as another F-22 Raptor rolled to a stop on the tarmac, smoke trailing from its engines. Captain Rodriguez climbed out of the cockpit, his face flushed with frustration and embarrassment. The multi-million-dollar stealth fighter had just experienced its third consecutive system failure in as many days, and the assembled crowd of engineers, technicians, and brass watched in uncomfortable silence as the most advanced aircraft in the world sat disabled on the runway like an expensive paperweight. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The California heat shimmered off the concrete as Maya Chun wiped grease from her hands with a worn blue rag, her coveralls stained with hydraulic fluid and engine oil. She stood barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, her slight frame dwarfed by the massive fighter jets that surrounded her in the maintenance hangar. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, tucked beneath a standard-issue baseball cap that had seen better days. Small grease stains marked her cheeks where she'd absently wiped her face during long hours of detailed work, and her fingernails bore the permanent evidence of someone who spent their days elbow-deep in complex machinery. Maya had been working at Edwards for 3 years now, ever since graduating from the Air Force Academy's engineering program. She'd requested fighter maintenance specifically, drawn to the precision and complexity of the world's most advanced aircraft. While her classmates had gone on to pilot training or prestigious Pentagon assignments, Maya had chosen the less glamorous path of keeping these mechanical marvels in the sky. Her supervisors had been surprised by her choice, but Maya knew exactly what she wanted to do with her career. The F-22 program had been her obsession since her first day on base. She'd studied every manual, memorized every system, and spent countless off-duty hours learning about the aircraft's revolutionary design. The Raptor represented the pinnacle of aerospace engineering, a machine so sophisticated that it required constant attention from teams of specialists just to remain operational. Maya understood its quirks better than most people understood their own cars, but around the base, she was just another mechanic in coveralls. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison, the base's operations commander, approached the disabled aircraft with his characteristic swagger. He was a man who'd built his reputation on being tough, decisive, and utterly confident in his ability to solve any problem through sheer force of will. His uniform was always pressed to perfection, his silver hair styled precisely, and his bearing suggested someone who'd never met a challenge he couldn't overcome through traditional military thinking. "What's the status on this bird?" Harrison demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to immediate answers. The assembled technicians shifted uncomfortably, exchanging glances that spoke of long hours spent chasing ghosts in the machine. Senior Master Sergeant Davis, the maintenance chief, stepped forward with a clipboard thick with diagnostic reports. Davis had been working on military aircraft for over 20 years, and his weathered face showed the strain of dealing with problems that defied conventional solutions. "Sir, we've run every test in the book. The flight control systems are showing intermittent failures that we can't replicate on the ground. The pilots report complete loss of response from the aircraft during specific maneuvers, but by the time they land, everything tests normal." Harrison's jaw tightened with visible frustration. The F-22 program was under intense scrutiny from Congress, with critics questioning the aircraft's reliability and cost-effectiveness. Each failure provided ammunition for those who wanted to cut the program's funding, and Harrison knew that his own career hung in the balance. "How long have we been chasing this problem?" 3 weeks, sir," Davis replied, his voice heavy with the weight of unsuccessful attempts. "We've replaced the primary flight computer twice, recalibrated all the sensors, and even brought in specialists from Lockheed Martin. Nothing we've tried has eliminated the issue." The crowd around the aircraft included some of the most experienced technicians and engineers on the base. These were men and women who'd spent decades working on cutting-edge military technology. People who'd solved problems that would stump civilian mechanics. Yet this particular F-22 had become their white whale, a puzzle that seemed to actively resist every attempt at solution. Maya watched the discussion from the edge of the group, her practiced eye already scanning the aircraft for clues that others might have missed. She'd been following the troubled Raptors saga from the beginning, studying each failure report and maintenance log with the intensity of a detective investigating a complex case. While the senior technicians focused on the obvious systems, Maya had begun to suspect that the problem lay somewhere deeper in the aircraft's intricate web of interconnected components. "What about the environmental control system?" she asked quietly, her voice barely carrying over the desert wind. Several of the senior technicians turned to look at her with expressions that ranged from mild annoyance to outright dismissal. Maya Sheen was known around the base as competent but unremarkable, someone who did her job well but rarely spoke up in meetings or offered unsolicited opinions. Chief Davis frowned slightly, clearly not interested in input from junior personnel. During a high-stakes briefing, "The ECS has been checked multiple times, Chun. All readings are within normal parameters." Maya nodded but didn't back down, her quiet confidence evident to anyone who bothered to look closely. "I've been reviewing the failure reports, and there's a pattern in the timing of the malfunctions. They all occur during high-G maneuvers, when the aircraft is pulling maximum performance from both the engines and the avionics system simultaneously." Lieutenant Colonel Harrison turned his attention to Maya for the first time, his expression suggesting mild curiosity mixed with skepticism. He'd built his career on listening to experienced voices, and the young woman in coveralls hardly fit that description. "Are you suggesting that our million-dollar diagnostic equipment missed something that you noticed in some paperwork?" The question carried a subtle challenge, and Maya felt the weight of every eye in the group focused on her. She'd spent 3 years observing the base's unofficial hierarchy, understanding that junior personnel were expected to defer to senior technicians and officers. Speaking up like this was a risk that could damage her career if she was wrong. But Maya had learned to trust her instincts when it came to complex mechanical systems. "I'm suggesting that the problem might not be with any single system," she replied carefully, choosing her words with the precision of someone who understood the political implications of challenging conventional wisdom. "The F-22 systems are more integrated than any previous aircraft. A failure in one area can cascade through multiple systems in ways that don't show up in isolated testing." Master Sergeant Thompson, a grizzled veteran with over 15 years of F-22 experience, let out a dismissive snort. Thompson had worked on every major military aircraft of the past 2 decades, and he'd developed a deep skepticism toward junior technicians who thought they could solve problems that had stumped their superiors. "Listen, kid, I've been working on Raptors since before you graduated high school. If there was some mysterious system interaction causing these failures, don't you think we would have found it by now?" Maya felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but she held her ground with the quiet determination that had gotten her through the Air Force Academy despite being consistently underestimated. "I'm not questioning anyone's experience, Sergeant. I'm just saying that maybe we need to look at the problem from a different angle." The discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Colonel Patricia Reeves, the base commander and one of the few senior officers who'd risen through the ranks based on technical expertise rather than political connections. Reeves was a former test pilot herself, someone who understood both the capabilities and limitations of advanced military aircraft. She'd been following the F-22 situation with growing concern, knowing that continued failures could jeopardize not just the program, but the careers of everyone involved. "What's our current status?" Reeves asked, her tone professional but tinged with the urgency of someone who knew that time was running out. The Pentagon had been asking increasingly pointed questions about the troubled aircraft, and Reeves was under pressure to provide answers that would satisfy both the brass and the Congressional Oversight Committee. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison straightened to attention, his voice taking on the crisp efficiency of someone delivering a formal briefing. "Ma'am, we've exhausted all conventional diagnostic procedures. The aircraft continues to experience flight control failures that we cannot replicate or resolve through standard maintenance protocols." Colonel Reeves nodded grimly, her expression reflecting the weight of command responsibility. She'd been in the military long enough to recognize when a problem had moved beyond the realm of routine maintenance into something more serious. "How long before we have to ground the entire F-22 fleet pending resolution of this issue?" The question sent a chill through the assembled group. Grounding the F-22 fleet would be a public relations disaster that would provide ammunition for every critic of the program. It would also mean admitting that the world's most advanced fighter aircraft had a fundamental flaw that the POD Air Force couldn't fix, a humiliation that would reverberate through every level of the military hierarchy. "We're recommending against that course of action at this time," Harrison replied, though his voice lacked the confidence that usually characterized his responses. "We believe we can resolve the issue through continued systematic analysis of the aircraft systems." Maya watched the exchange with growing frustration, knowing that the systematic approach Harrison described had already been tried multiple times without success. She'd spent the previous evening reviewing maintenance logs from similar aircraft, looking for patterns that might provide clues to the current problem. Her analysis had led her to a theory that she was increasingly confident about, but sharing it would require challenging the established hierarchy in a way that could destroy her career. Colonel Reeves must have noticed Maya's expression because she turned toward the young technician with a questioning look. "Do you have something to add, Sergeant Chun?" Maya felt her heart rate increase as she realized she was about to either make a breakthrough or commit career suicide. "Ma'am, I believe the problem might be related to a harmonic resonance issue in the aircraft's integrated systems. During high-stress maneuvers, multiple systems are operating at peak capacity simultaneously, and I think there's an interaction between the environmental control system and the flight computers that creates a feedback loop." The silence that followed her statement was deafening. Thompson shook his head with visible disgust, while Davis looked like he wanted to remind Maya about the importance of staying in her lane. Harrison's expression suggested he was wondering whether Maya was brilliant or delusional, and several of the other technicians exchanged glances that clearly questioned her judgment. "That's an interesting theory," Colonel Reeves said carefully, her tone neutral but attentive. "Do you have any evidence to support it?" Maya pulled a folded printout from her pocket, her hand steady despite the nervous energy coursing through her system. "I've been tracking the timing of each failure against the aircraft's operational parameters. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Every malfunction occurs when the ECS is working hardest to maintain cabin pressure during extreme maneuvers, while the flight computers are processing maximum data loads." She unfolded the paper to reveal a detailed chart that showed the correlation between system loads and failure timing. The data was presented with the precision of someone who understood that theories without evidence were worthless in the military environment. Maya had spent hours creating the analysis, cross-referencing multiple data sources to build a compelling case for her hypothesis. Master Sergeant Davis took the printout and studied it with the expression of someone who'd learned to be skeptical of junior personnel's theories. After a long moment, he looked up with surprise evident in his voice. "This is actually pretty thorough work, Chun. Where did you get all this data?" "I've been collecting it from maintenance logs, flight records, and system performance reports," Maya replied, her confidence growing as she saw genuine interest in Davis's expression. The pattern becomes clear when you look at the data from multiple sources instead of focusing on individual systems. Colonel Reeves stepped forward to examine the chart, her trained eye quickly grasping the implications of Maya's analysis. As a former test pilot, she'd experienced firsthand how seemingly unrelated systems could interact in unexpected ways during extreme flight conditions. This suggests that the failure isn't mechanical at all, but rather a software interaction. Issue. Maya nodded enthusiastically, pleased that someone with authority was taking her theory seriously. Exactly, ma'am. The hardware is all functioning perfectly, but the software isn't designed to handle the specific combination of stress factors that occur during certain maneuvers. It's like a perfect storm of system demands that creates a temporary overload. Condition. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison remained skeptical, his expression suggesting he wasn't ready to accept that a junior technician had identified a problem that had stumped his entire maintenance team. If that's true, why hasn't anyone else identified this pattern? We have some of the most experienced F-22 technicians in the Air Force working on this problem. Maya felt the familiar sting of having her qualifications questioned, but she'd learned to respond with facts rather than emotion. Sometimes it takes a fresh perspective to see patterns that others might miss. I've been studying this aircraft's systems intensively for 3 years, and I've had the advantage of reviewing all the failure data without preconceived notions about what the problem might be. The group fell silent as they processed the implications of Maya's theory. If she was correct, it would mean that the F-22's problems weren't the result of mechanical failure or poor maintenance, but rather a fundamental flaw in the aircraft's software architecture that had somehow escaped detection during years of testing and development. Colonel Reeves looked thoughtful as she considered the options available to her. If this harmonic resonance theory is correct, how would we go about proving it? Maya had been hoping someone would ask that question, and she was ready with a detailed response. We would need to monitor the aircraft systems in real time during flight operations, looking specifically for the interaction patterns I've identified. The current diagnostic equipment focuses on individual systems, but we'd need to track multiple systems simultaneously to see the cascade effect. And if we can prove the theory? Reeves asked. Then we could modify the software to prevent the problematic system interactions, Maya replied. It would be a relatively simple fix once we understand the root cause, but it would require coordination between the flight control software and the environmental systems to prevent the overload condition. Master Sergeant Thompson, who'd been listening with growing skepticism, finally spoke up with the authority of someone who'd seen too many junior technicians propose theoretical solutions to practical problems. That's a lot of speculation based on some charts and graphs. Chun, what happens if you're wrong and we waste time chasing another dead end? Maya met his gaze steadily, understanding that her credibility was being tested by someone whose opinion carried significant weight with the base leadership. Then we'll have eliminated one more possibility and moved closer to the real solution. But I don't think I'm wrong about this, Sergeant. The data is too consistent to be coincidental. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Sarah Mitchell, one of the base's most experienced test pilots. Mitchell had been flying F-22s for over 5 years, and she'd been in the cockpit during 2 of the recent system failures. Her first-hand experience with the aircraft's problems gave her a unique perspective on the situation. I couldn't help but overhear the discussion, Mitchell said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who'd learned to trust her instincts in life-or-death situations. Shun's theory actually makes sense from a pilot's perspective. The failures I've experienced all occurred during high-stress maneuvers when I was pushing the aircraft to its limits. Colonel Reeves turned to Mitchell with interest, recognizing the value of pilot input in solving technical problems. Can you describe the specific conditions that led to the failures you experienced? Mitchell nodded, her expression growing serious as she recalled the terrifying moments when the world's most advanced fighter had suddenly become unresponsive. Both times, I was conducting high-G maneuvers while the aircraft was operating at maximum performance levels. The ECS was working hard to maintain cabin pressure. The engines were at full power, and the flight computers were processing complex, targeting data simultaneously. Maya felt a surge of vindication as Mitchell's description matched exactly what her analysis had predicted. That's precisely the combination of factors that my data suggests creates the overload condition. When all those systems are operating at peak capacity simultaneously, the software can't handle the processing load. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison remained unconvinced, his skepticism evident in both his expression and his body language. Even if Chun's theory is correct, we still need to prove it before we can recommend any changes to the aircraft's software. The Pentagon isn't going to authorize modifications to a multi-billion-dollar program based on the speculation of a junior technician. Maya understood the political realities that Harrison was referencing, but she also knew that her theory represented the best lead they'd had in weeks of investigation. "I'm not asking anyone to take my word for it, sir. I'm asking for the opportunity to prove my theory through systematic testing." Colonel Reeves studied Maya with the calculating expression of someone who'd built her career on making difficult decisions under pressure. "What kind of testing would you need to validate your theory?" Maya had spent considerable time thinking about this exact question, and she was ready with a detailed proposal. "We would need to instrument the aircraft with additional monitoring. Equipment that could track the interaction between the ECS and flight control systems during actual flight operations. The current diagnostic equipment treats each system separately, but we need to see how they interact under stress conditions." "How long would that take?" Reeves asked. "The instrumentation could be installed overnight," Maya replied. "The real challenge would be finding a pilot willing to recreate the exact conditions that have been causing the failures. It would involve some risk since we'd be deliberately trying to trigger the problem." Captain Mitchell stepped forward. Without hesitation, her voice carrying the determination of someone who'd chosen a career that routinely involved calculated risks. "I'll do it. I've experienced the failures before, and I know what conditions trigger them. If Chun's theory is correct, I can help prove it." The offer created a moment of tense silence as everyone considered the implications. If Maya was wrong, they'd be risking not just an expensive aircraft, but the life of one of their best pilots. If she was right, they'd finally have a solution to a problem that had been plaguing the F-22 program for weeks. Master Sergeant Davis looked uncomfortable with the proposed risk, his expression reflecting the conservative approach that had kept him successful throughout his long career. "Ma'am, I'm not sure we should be conducting experimental testing with unproven theories. The standard diagnostic procedures exist for a reason." Maya felt the weight of opposition building around her, but she also sensed that Colonel Reeves was considering her proposal seriously. "I understand the concerns, but we've already tried every standard approach multiple times without success. At some point, we need to try something different." Colonel Reeves nodded slowly, her expression reflecting the burden of command responsibility. "The Pentagon is expecting answers within the next few days. If we can't provide them, they're going to start asking very pointed questions about the F-22 program's viability." The political pressure was something everyone in the group understood, even if they didn't like to acknowledge it openly. Military programs lived or died based on their ability to demonstrate reliability and effectiveness, and the F-22's recent problems had created vulnerabilities that the program's critics were eager to exploit. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison seemed to recognize the changing dynamic in the conversation, and his tone became more pragmatic. "If we're going to pursue Chun's theory, we need to do it in a way that minimizes risk while maximizing the chances of getting definitive results." Maya seized the opening, recognizing that she might not get another chance to advocate for her approach. "The testing protocol I'm proposing is actually quite conservative. We'd start with low-risk maneuvers and gradually increase the stress levels while monitoring the system interactions in real time. If we see the predicted patterns developing, we can abort the test before any actual failure occurs. Colonel Reeves considered the proposal for a long moment, weighing the risks against the potential benefits. What's your assessment of the probability that Chen's theory is correct? The question put Maya in a difficult position, since overconfidence could be as damaging as excessive caution. Based on my analysis of the available data, I believe there's a high probability that system interaction is the root cause of the failures. I can't guarantee that my specific theory about harmonic resonance is correct, but I'm confident that we're looking at a software issue rather than a hardware problem. Master Sergeant Thompson shook his head with visible frustration, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the discussion was taking. This is all very theoretical, but we're talking about risking a pilot's life and a $100 million aircraft, based on the hunches of someone who's been out of school for 3 years. Maya felt the familiar sting of having her experience questioned, but she'd learned to respond with professionalism rather than defensiveness. I understand your concerns, Sergeant, and I respect your experience. But sometimes fresh eyes can see patterns that others miss, especially when those patterns involve interactions between systems that are traditionally analyzed separately. Captain Mitchell spoke up in support of Maya's approach, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd put her life on the line flying the troubled aircraft. Chen's theory is the first explanation I've heard that actually matches what I've experienced in the cockpit. The failures I've encountered don't feel like mechanical problems. They feel like the aircraft's brain is getting confused. The pilot's endorsement seemed to carry significant weight with Colonel Reeves, who'd learned to trust the instincts of experienced aviators. If we proceed with this testing, what safeguards would be in place to protect both the pilot and the aircraft? Maya had anticipated this question and was ready with a comprehensive answer. We'd conduct the test with full emergency protocols in place, including chase aircraft and immediate access to emergency landing facilities. The monitoring equipment would provide real-time data on system performance, allowing us to abort the test at the first sign of problems. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison remained skeptical but seemed to recognize the political necessity of pursuing new approaches. Even if the test validates Qing's theory, we'd still need to develop and implement a software fix. That could take months of development and testing. Maya nodded, understanding that proving her theory would be only the first step in a longer process. The fix itself would be relatively straightforward once we understand the root cause. We'd need to modify the software to prevent the problematic system interactions, but that's much simpler than redesigning hardware components. Colonel Reeves made her decision with the decisive authority that had characterized her entire career. We'll proceed with Chen's testing proposal, but with strict safety protocols and limited scope. If the initial results support her theory, we'll expand the testing program and begin developing potential solutions. The announcement created a mix of reactions among the assembled group. Maya felt a surge of excitement mixed with anxiety, knowing that she'd finally gotten the opportunity to prove her theory, but also understanding that failure would likely end her career prospects. Master Sergeant Thompson looked resigned to a course of action he didn't support, while Davis seemed cautiously optimistic about the possibility of finally solving the persistent problem. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison nodded his acceptance of the decision, though his expression suggested he remained doubtful about the approach. I'll coordinate with the Test Flight Division to schedule the necessary aircraft and pilot time. Chen, you'll be responsible for developing the detailed testing protocol and ensuring that all monitoring equipment is properly installed. Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders as she realized that the success or failure of the entire effort would rest largely on her ability to design and execute effective tests. Yes, sir. I'll have the detailed protocol ready for review by tomorrow morning. As the group began to disperse, Colonel Reeves approached Maya with a serious expression. "Chun, I want you to understand that this is a significant opportunity, but it also carries substantial risk. If your theory is wrong, it could damage not just your career, but the entire F-22 program." Maya met the colonel's gaze steadily, drawing on the confidence she'd developed through years of detailed study and analysis. "I understand the risks, ma'am, and I appreciate the opportunity to prove my theory. I believe the data supports my conclusions, and I'm willing to stake my career on it." Colonel Reeves nodded approvingly, recognizing the kind of quiet confidence that often characterized truly exceptional personnel. "Good. I expect you to approach this with the same thoroughness you've shown in your analysis. The Air Force needs people who can think outside conventional parameters, especially when dealing with systems as complex as the F-22. As the crowd around the troubled aircraft finally dispersed, Maya found herself alone with the machine that had become both her obsession and her opportunity. The F-22 sat silent on the tarmac, its sleek lines and advanced technology representing both the pinnacle of aerospace engineering and a puzzle that had frustrated some of the most experienced technicians in the Air Force. Maya walked around the aircraft slowly, her trained eye taking in every detail of its construction and configuration. She'd studied the Raptor's systems extensively, but seeing the physical aircraft always reinforced her appreciation for the complexity of the machine. Every component had been designed to work in perfect harmony with every other component, creating a level of integration that was unprecedented in military aviation. The next 24 hours would determine whether Maya's theory about system interactions was correct, and whether her career would advance or effectively end. She'd spent 3 years preparing for this moment, though she'd never expected the opportunity to come in quite this way. The young woman who'd chosen maintenance over piloting was about to prove that understanding how machines worked was just as important as knowing how to fly them. As the desert sun continued its relentless assault on the base, Maya began mentally preparing for the most important test of her career. She'd identified what she believed to be the root cause of the F-22's problems, convinced the base leadership to give her theory a chance, and now she had to prove that her analysis was correct. The world's most advanced fighter aircraft had become her personal challenge, and tomorrow would reveal whether she was up to the task. The maintenance hangar fell quiet as the day shift ended and the evening crew took over routine operations. Maya remained at her workstation, reviewing technical manuals and system diagrams as she refined her testing protocol. She'd been given an opportunity that most junior technicians could only dream of, and she was determined to make the most of it. In the distance, another F-22 took off for a routine training mission, its twin engines producing the distinctive sound that had become synonymous with American air superiority. Maya watched the aircraft climb into the darkening sky, knowing that tomorrow she'd either solve one of the most persistent problems in the program's history or join the ranks of those who'd tried and failed to tame the world's most sophisticated fighter. The stakes couldn't be higher, and Maya Chun was ready to prove that sometimes the most important insights come from the most unexpected sources. Maya Chun's journey to Edwards Air Force Base had begun 12 years earlier in a small garage in Riverside, California, where her father operated an independent aircraft maintenance shop specializing in vintage warbirds and experimental aircraft. David Chun had immigrated from Taiwan in the 1980s with an engineering degree and dreams of working in America's aerospace industry. But language barriers and credential recognition issues had forced him to start his own business rather than work for major corporations. The Chun family garage was a cramped space filled with aircraft parts, technical manuals, and the constant smell of hydraulic fluid and metal polish. David worked long hours rebuilding engines and repairing systems for aircraft owners who couldn't afford the rates charged by larger maintenance facilities. Maya had grown up among the P-51 Mustangs and experimental home-built aircraft that filled her father's workspace, learning to identify different engine sounds before she could properly ride a bicycle. Unlike other children who might have been bored by the technical conversations that dominated dinner table discussions in the Chun household, Maya absorbed every detail about aircraft systems and maintenance procedures. She learned to read technical drawings at age 8, understand hydraulic schematics at 10, and diagnose engine problems by sound alone before she turned 12. Her father initially tried to discourage her interest, believing that aircraft maintenance was too demanding and dangerous for his daughter. But Maya's natural aptitude for understanding complex mechanical systems eventually won him over. During her high school years, Maya spent every afternoon and weekend working alongside her father, gradually taking on more complex maintenance tasks as her skills developed. She learned to rebuild engines with the precision of a master craftsman, troubleshoot electrical systems that confounded more experienced technicians, and develop innovative solutions to problems that standard procedures couldn't address. David Chun's customers began requesting specifically that Maya work on their aircraft, recognizing that the teenager possessed an intuitive understanding of aircraft systems that couldn't be taught in traditional classroom settings. Maya's academic performance reflected her mechanical aptitude, with perfect scores in mathematics and physics, complemented by exceptional results in engineering coursework. Her guidance counselors encouraged her to pursue aerospace engineering at prestigious universities. But Maya had already decided that she wanted to combine her love of aircraft with military service. The Air Force Academy represented the perfect opportunity to merge her technical interests with her desire to serve her country. The application process for the Air Force Academy proved challenging, not because of Maya's academic qualifications, which were exceptional, but because of subtle biases that questioned whether someone from her background belonged at such a prestigious institution. Her family's small business didn't carry the same prestige as corporate executive positions, and her father's accent sometimes led admissions officers to make incorrect assumptions about the family's commitment to American values. Maya persevered through multiple interviews and evaluations, eventually earning appointment to the academy based purely on merit and determination. Cadet life at the Air Force Academy tested Maya in ways that her garage experience hadn't prepared her for. The military environment demanded conformity and adherence to established procedures, characteristics that sometimes conflicted with the creative problem-solving approach she'd learned from her father. While her technical knowledge far exceeded that of most cadets, Maya struggled initially with the rigid hierarchy and formal protocols that governed academy life. Her roommate during the first year was Jennifer Walsh, a cadet from a prominent military family whose father was a retired Air Force general and whose brother was already serving as an F-16 pilot. Jennifer initially viewed Maya with a mixture of curiosity and condescension, unable to understand why someone with Maya's technical abilities wouldn't pursue the more prestigious path of becoming a pilot rather than a maintenance officer. The relationship between the roommates evolved throughout their academy years as Jennifer gradually recognized that Maya's approach to understanding aircraft systems was fundamentally different from the textbook knowledge that most cadets acquired. While Jennifer and their classmates memorized technical specifications and procedures, Maya intuitively understood how systems interacted and why certain design choices had been made. Her ability to diagnose problems and develop solutions impressed even the most demanding instructors. During their second year, the cadets participated in a practical exercise involving the maintenance of a retired F-15 Eagle that the Academy used for training purposes. The aircraft had been experiencing intermittent electrical problems that had stumped both the cadet maintenance crews and several experienced instructors. Standard diagnostic procedures had failed to identify the root cause of the malfunctions, and the exercise was becoming an embarrassment for the Academy's engineering program. Maya approached the problem with the methodical patience her father had taught her, spending hours studying the aircraft's electrical schematics and tracing wire routing through the cramped confines of the fighter's fuselage. While other cadets focused on the obvious components and systems, Maya began investigating seemingly unrelated areas where electrical interference might be occurring. After 3 days of investigation, Maya discovered that the problem originated from a poorly shielded wire bundle that passed too close to the aircraft's radar system. The electromagnetic interference from the radar was causing intermittent disruptions in the electrical system, but only under specific operational conditions that weren't replicated during standard ground testing. Her solution involved rerouting the affected wires and adding additional shielding to prevent future interference. The instructors were initially skeptical of Maya's diagnosis, particularly since it challenged the conclusions reached by more senior personnel. However, when they implemented her recommended fixes, the electrical problems disappeared completely. The incident established Maya's reputation as someone with exceptional diagnostic abilities, but it also marked her as different from her peers in ways that weren't entirely positive. Major Patricia Hendricks, the Academy's senior maintenance instructor, recognized Maya's unique talents and began providing her with increasingly challenging projects that went beyond the standard curriculum. Hendricks had served as a maintenance officer for over 15 years before accepting a teaching position at the Academy, and she understood the value of practical experience in developing truly exceptional technicians. Under Hendricks' mentorship, Maya gained exposure to advanced aircraft systems and cutting-edge maintenance, techniques that wouldn't normally be covered until much later in her career. She learned about the integration challenges facing modern military aircraft, where multiple complex systems had to work together seamlessly to achieve performance levels that pushed the boundaries of engineering possibility. The F-22 Raptor became Maya's particular obsession during her final year at the Academy. The aircraft represented everything she found fascinating about aerospace engineering, with systems so advanced and integrated that traditional maintenance approaches often proved inadequate. Maya spent countless hours studying F-22 technical documentation, learning about the aircraft's revolutionary design and the unique challenges it presented to maintenance personnel. Her senior thesis focused on predictive maintenance techniques for highly integrated aircraft systems, with specific emphasis on identifying potential failure modes before they manifested as actual problems. The research required Maya to analyze vast amounts of operational data from various aircraft platforms, looking for patterns that might indicate developing issues. Her conclusions challenged some established maintenance practices and proposed new approaches to system monitoring and diagnostics. The thesis committee was divided in their evaluation of Maya's work, with some members praising her innovative thinking, while others questioned whether her recommendations were practical in real-world operational environments. Major Hendricks advocated strongly for Maya's approach, arguing that the increasing complexity of modern aircraft demanded exactly the kind of systematic analysis that Maya had demonstrated. Upon graduation from the Academy, Maya faced a career decision that would define her military service. Her academic performance and demonstrated technical abilities made her eligible for pilot training, navigator school, or various engineering assignments. Most of her classmates pursued the more glamorous flying positions, viewing ground-based assignments as less desirable or prestigious. Maya chose aircraft maintenance specialty training, a decision that surprised many of her instructors and fellow graduates. She understood that pilots received most of the recognition and advancement opportunities, but she believed that truly understanding how aircraft worked required intimate knowledge of their mechanical and electronic systems. Her goal was to become the kind of maintenance expert who could solve problems that others couldn't even diagnose. Technical school at Shepherd Air Force Base provided Maya with formal training in advanced aircraft maintenance procedures. But the instruction often felt elementary compared to the knowledge she'd already acquired through years of hands-on experience. She excelled in every course while simultaneously studying additional material that went beyond the required curriculum. Her instructors noted that Maya possessed an intuitive understanding of aircraft systems that typically took years of field experience to develop. The F-22 specialty course represented the pinnacle of military aircraft maintenance training, with instruction covering the most advanced aerospace technology and operational service. Maya absorbed every detail about the Raptor's integrated systems, learning how the aircraft's revolutionary design created both unprecedented capabilities and unique maintenance challenges. The course emphasized the importance of understanding system interactions, since the F-22's performance depended on seamless coordination between multiple complex subsystems. Maya graduated at the top of her technical school class, earning recognition as the outstanding student in F-22 systems maintenance. Her instructors recommended her for assignment to one of the premier F-22 operational units, but Maya specifically requested Edwards Air Force Base, knowing that the test environment would expose her to the most challenging maintenance scenarios and cutting-edge developments in aerospace technology. Edwards Air Force Base represented the epicenter of American aerospace development, where the boundaries of flight performance were constantly being pushed and redefined. The base hosted multiple test programs involving experimental aircraft and advanced modifications to existing platforms. For someone with Maya's interests and abilities, Edwards offered unparalleled opportunities to work on the most sophisticated aircraft systems in the world. Her arrival at Edwards coincided with the introduction of new F-22 variants, incorporating upgraded avionics and enhanced system integration. The aircraft were experiencing growing pains typical of cutting-edge technology, with intermittent problems that challenged even the most experienced maintenance teams. Maya was assigned to the 412th Test Wing's Maintenance Squadron, where she would support flight testing operations and help solve the complex technical issues that inevitably arose with experimental aircraft. The maintenance squadron at Edwards differed significantly from typical operational units, with personnel selected for their exceptional technical abilities and innovative problem-solving skills. Maya found herself working alongside master sergeants and technical sergeants who had decades of experience with advanced aircraft systems. Initially, her colleagues viewed her with polite skepticism, recognizing her impressive credentials but questioning whether someone so young could contribute meaningfully to their efforts. Master Sergeant William Rodriguez became Maya's immediate supervisor and informal mentor during her first months at Edwards. Rodriguez had worked on every major Air Force aircraft platform over his 20-year career, and he possessed the kind of practical knowledge that couldn't be learned from technical manuals. He initially assigned Maya to routine maintenance tasks, gradually increasing her responsibilities as she demonstrated competence and reliability. Maya's breakthrough moment came during her 6th month at Edwards, when an experimental F-22 variant experienced a complex avionics malfunction that defied conventional diagnosis. The aircraft's integrated display system was providing contradictory information to pilots, creating potentially dangerous situations during test flights. Multiple teams of specialists had attempted to isolate the problem, but the malfunction appeared to be intermittent and impossible to replicate consistently. Rodriguez assigned Maya to assist with the investigation, expecting her to perform basic diagnostic procedures under supervision. Instead, Maya approached the problem with the systematic methodology she'd learned from her father, treating the aircraft as an integrated system rather than a collection of separate components. She spent days studying the aircraft's technical documentation, looking for potential interaction points between different systems that might explain the observed symptoms. Maya's analysis revealed that the display malfunction was actually a symptom of a more fundamental problem involving data synchronization between the aircraft's multiple computer systems. During certain flight conditions, the computers were receiving conflicting inputs from various sensors, causing them to display information based on different assumptions about the aircraft's status. The problem only manifested when specific combinations of flight parameters occurred simultaneously, explaining why it had been so difficult to reproduce during ground testing. Her proposed solution involved modifying the software that managed data flow between the aircraft's computer systems, ensuring that all displays received information from consistent sources. The fix required coordination between multiple contractors and extensive testing to verify that the changes didn't create new problems, but it ultimately resolved the display issues completely. The successful resolution of the avionics problem established Maya's reputation as someone with exceptional diagnostic abilities, but it also highlighted her youth and relative inexperience in ways that made some colleagues uncomfortable. Senior technicians who had been struggling with the problem for weeks found it difficult to accept that a junior airman had identified the solution they'd missed. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres, a 10-year veteran of F-22 maintenance, expressed the skepticism that many felt about Maya's rapid success. Torres had worked his way up through the ranks by following established procedures and respecting the experience of senior personnel, and he viewed Maya's unconventional approach as potentially dangerous. In his opinion, junior personnel should focus on learning from their seniors rather than proposing innovative solutions to complex problems. Maya understood the interpersonal dynamics that her success had created, but she remained focused on her primary goal of becoming the best aircraft maintenance technician possible. She continued studying F-22 systems with the intensity of someone preparing for a crucial examination, learning every detail about the aircraft's design and operational characteristics. Her off-duty hours were spent reading technical publications, analyzing maintenance data, and developing theoretical solutions to problems that hadn't yet manifested in actual aircraft. Senior Master Sergeant Lisa Carter, the squadron's most experienced F-22 technician, eventually became Maya's strongest advocate within the maintenance community. Carter had initially shared the skepticism expressed by other senior personnel, but Maya's consistently excellent performance and innovative thinking gradually won her respect. Carter recognized that Maya possessed the kind of intuitive understanding of complex systems that distinguished truly exceptional technicians from merely competent ones. Under Carter's mentorship, Maya gained exposure to the most challenging maintenance scenarios that Edwards had to offer. She worked on experimental modifications to F-22 systems, participated in troubleshooting efforts for problems that had stumped teams of specialists, and contributed to the development of new maintenance procedures for advanced aircraft variants. Each assignment added to her knowledge base and reinforced her reputation as someone who could solve problems that others couldn't. Maya's expertise in system integration issues became particularly valuable as the F-22 program evolved to incorporate new technologies and capabilities. The aircraft's advanced design made it an ideal platform for testing cutting-edge avionics and weapon systems. But the integration of new components often created unexpected interactions with existing systems. Maya's ability to understand and predict these interactions made her an invaluable member of the test community. During her second year at Edwards, Maya was selected for assignment to the 411th Flight Test Squadron, an elite unit responsible for the most sensitive and technically challenging test programs on the base. The assignment represented a significant recognition of her abilities, since the flight test squadrons typically recruited only the most experienced and capable personnel. Maya would be working directly with test pilots and engineers to support experimental programs that push the boundaries of aerospace technology. The flight test environment exposed Maya to aspects of aircraft operations that most maintenance personnel never encountered. She learned how subtle changes in aircraft configuration could affect flight characteristics, how environmental factors influence system performance, and how the demands of experimental flight testing differed from routine operational flying. The knowledge gained through this exposure would prove invaluable in her later efforts to understand the complex problems affecting the troubled F-22 test pilot. Captain Amanda Foster became one of Maya's most important collaborators during this period, recognizing that the young technician possessed insights into aircraft systems that complemented her own operational experience. Foster had been flying F-22s for over 4 years, and she appreciated Maya's ability to explain complex technical issues in terms that pilots could understand and apply in actual flight situations. The collaboration on several test programs demonstrated the value of close cooperation between pilots and maintenance personnel, particularly when dealing with experimental modifications that might behave differently than expected. Maya learned to anticipate the questions that pilots would ask about system performance, while Foster gained a deeper appreciation for the technical complexity that made the F-22's exceptional performance possible. Maya's growing reputation within the test community led to increasingly challenging assignments and greater responsibility for solving complex technical problems. She participated in the development of new diagnostic procedures, contributed to the design of system modifications, and helped train other maintenance personnel in advanced troubleshooting techniques. Her career trajectory was clearly pointing towards senior technical positions that would allow her to influence the direction of military aircraft maintenance. The assignment that would ultimately define Maya's career began 3 months before the current crisis, when she was selected to join a special team investigating recurring problems with F-22 system reliability. The issues were subtle and intermittent, often manifesting as minor anomalies that didn't significantly affect flight safety, but suggested underlying problems that could become more serious over time. Maya's expertise in system integration made her a natural choice for the investigation team. The initial investigation focused on traditional approaches to problem identification, with teams of specialists examining individual systems for signs of malfunction or degradation. Maya participated in these efforts while simultaneously conducting her own analysis of the problem patterns, looking for connections that might not be apparent when systems were examined in isolation. Her methodology involved treating the aircraft as a single integrated entity rather than a collection of separate components. Maya's analysis revealed subtle patterns in the timing and nature of the reported anomalies, suggesting that the problems might be related to interactions between systems rather than failures of individual components. The patterns were complex and difficult to detect without sophisticated data analysis, explaining why they had been overlooked during previous investigations. Maya spent weeks refining her analysis, building a comprehensive picture of how different systems influenced each other during various flight conditions. The current crisis with the completely disabled F-22 represented an escalation of the problems that Maya had been studying, but the fundamental issues were the same. The aircraft's integrated systems were experiencing conflicts that manifested as serious malfunctions during high-stress operational scenarios. Maya's previous research had prepared her to understand these problems in ways that others couldn't, giving her unique insights into both the root causes and potential solutions. Her proposal for additional testing represented the culmination of months of careful analysis and theoretical development. Maya understood that she was asking senior personnel to trust the judgment of someone with relatively little operational experience, but she also knew that her approach represented the best hope for solving problems that had resisted all conventional solutions. The opportunity to prove her theories would either validate her entire approach to aircraft maintenance or demonstrate that academic knowledge couldn't substitute for years of practical experience. As Maya prepared for the crucial test that would determine whether her theories were correct, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From her father's small garage in Riverside to the flight line at Edwards Air Force Base, she had consistently chosen the path that would deepen her understanding of how complex machines worked. Tomorrow would reveal whether that knowledge was sufficient to solve one of the most challenging problems in modern military aviation. The morning of the test dawned clear and windless, ideal conditions for the complex flight operations that Maya had proposed. She arrived at the maintenance hangar before sunrise, her toolkit in hand and a thick folder of technical specifications under her arm. The specialized monitoring equipment had been delivered overnight from the Air Force Research Laboratory, representing millions of dollars worth of sensors and data, recording devices that would track every aspect of the F-22 system interactions during flight. Maya methodically checked each piece of monitoring equipment, verifying calibration settings and ensuring that all data connections were secure. The sensors would measure electromagnetic interference patterns, software processing loads, temperature variations, and dozens of other parameters that standard diagnostic equipment couldn't monitor simultaneously. The installation process required 6 hours of meticulous work, with Maya personally supervising every connection to ensure that the additional equipment wouldn't interfere with the aircraft's normal operations. Captain Sarah Mitchell arrived at the flight line an hour before the scheduled test, walking around the instrumented F-22 with the careful attention of a pilot who understood that her life would depend on the aircraft's reliability. Mitchell had volunteered for the dangerous mission despite the obvious risks, driven by professional curiosity about Maya's theories and frustration with the ongoing problems that had grounded several aircraft in recent weeks. The pilot examined each external sensor installation, asking detailed questions about how the monitoring equipment might affect the aircraft's flight characteristics. Maya explained that the sensors were designed to be completely passive, recording data without influencing the systems they were monitoring. The additional weight was minimal, and the aerodynamic impact had been calculated to be negligible for the maneuvers planned during the test flight. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison arrived with a team of senior officers who had observed the test from the control tower, their expressions reflecting a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. The political pressure from Washington had intensified overnight, with congressional staffers making inquiries about the F-22 program's reliability and cost-effectiveness. Harrison knew that his own career prospects were tied to resolving the aircraft's problems quickly and decisively. Colonel Reeves joined the group shortly before the scheduled takeoff time, her presence adding weight to an event that many viewed as a junior technician's last chance to prove an unorthodox theory. Reeves had built her reputation on supporting innovative approaches to complex problems, but she also understood that failure would reflect poorly on her judgment and leadership. The stakes were higher than anyone wanted to acknowledge publicly. Maya positioned herself in the maintenance control center, surrounded by computer screens that would display real-time data from the aircraft's monitoring systems. She had programmed custom software to analyze the incoming information, looking for the specific patterns that her theory predicted would appear during high-stress flight conditions. The software would alert her immediately if dangerous system interactions began developing, allowing the test to be aborted before any actual malfunction occurred. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stood beside Maya, his experienced eye monitoring the Rodriguez stood beside Maya. Standard aircraft systems while she focused on the experimental data streams. Rodriguez had expressed reservations about the test throughout the planning process, but his respect for Maya's analytical abilities had gradually overcome his natural conservatism. He understood that conventional approaches had failed completely, making unconventional solutions worth pursuing despite their inherent risks. Captain Mitchell's voice crackled through the radio as she completed her pre-flight checklist. Reporting normal readings from all standard aircraft systems. The F-22's engines spooled up with their characteristic whine, producing enough power to lift a machine that represented the pinnacle of aerospace engineering. Mitchell taxied slowly to the active runway, giving Maya's monitoring systems time to establish baseline readings before the actual test began. The first phase of Maya's test protocol involved normal takeoff and climb procedures, allowing the monitoring equipment to record system behavior under routine operating conditions. Maya watched the data streams carefully, noting how the aircraft's various systems interacted during standard flight operations. The patterns matched her theoretical predictions perfectly, with each system operating within expected parameters while maintaining proper coordination with related subsystems. Mitchell's voice remained calm and professional as she reported reaching the designated test altitude, ready to begin the systematic progression of maneuvers that would gradually increase stress on the aircraft's integrated systems. Maya had designed the test to start with low-risk procedures, building incrementally toward the high-performance conditions that had triggered previous failures. The approach would provide maximum safety while ensuring that any developing problems would be detected before they became dangerous. The second phase involved moderate G-force maneuvers while the aircraft's environmental control system worked to maintain cabin pressure and temperature. Maya's monitoring systems immediately detected increased interaction between the ECS and flight control computers, exactly as her analysis had predicted. The systems were handling the additional workload properly, but the data showed early signs of the processing conflicts that Maya believed led to system failures. Rodriguez watched Maya's computer screens with growing interest, beginning to understand the complex interactions that her monitoring systems were revealing. The data showed patterns that would have been impossible to detect with conventional diagnostic equipment, demonstrating why previous investigations had failed to identify the root cause of the F-22's problems. The aircraft systems were functioning individually, but their combined operation was creating stress patterns that conventional analysis couldn't measure. Captain Mitchell began the third phase of testing, executing high G turns while simultaneously operating the aircraft's advanced radar and communication systems. Maya's monitoring equipment registered immediate spikes in processing loads as multiple systems demanded maximum performance from the aircraft's computer networks. The data patterns were developing exactly as Maya's theory predicted, with system interactions becoming increasingly complex and potentially unstable. The critical moment arrived when Mitchell initiated a series of combat maneuvers that combined high G-forces with maximum electronic warfare system activation. Maya watched her monitoring screens intently as the data patterns reached the threshold levels that her analysis indicated would trigger system failures. The aircraft's computers were struggling to process the enormous data loads while simultaneously managing flight control inputs and environmental system demands. Suddenly, Maya's custom software triggered an alert as dangerous harmonic resonance patterns began developing in the aircraft's integrated systems. The monitoring data showed that the environmental control system and flight computers were entering a feedback loop that would lead to system failure within seconds. Maya grabbed her radio microphone and transmitted urgently to Captain Mitchell, her voice cutting through the routine communications with unmistakable authority. Bingo 7, abort current maneuver immediately and reduce all system loads. We're seeing the predicted failure pattern developing right now. Mitchell responded instantly to Maya's warning, rolling the aircraft to level flight and reducing power settings to minimum levels. The pilot's quick reaction prevented the system failure from progressing beyond the early warning stage, but Maya's monitoring equipment had captured complete data on the failure mechanism that had been plaguing the F-22 program for weeks. The data streaming across Maya's computer screens provided definitive proof of her theoretical predictions, showing exactly how the aircraft's integrated systems created destructive interference patterns under specific operational conditions. The harmonic resonance between the environmental control system and flight computers was clearly visible in the monitoring data, along with the cascade effects that would have led to complete system failure if the test had continued. Rodriguez stared at the monitoring displays in amazement, finally understanding the complex system interactions that Maya had been describing in her theoretical presentations. The data made it clear that the F-22's problems weren't caused by mechanical failures or software bugs in individual systems, but rather by fundamental design limitations in how those systems coordinated their operations under extreme stress conditions. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison's voice came through the radio with barely controlled excitement as he realized that Maya's test had successfully identified the root cause of problems that had stumped teams of experienced engineers and technicians. Chun, are you telling me that we've actually found the source of these system failures? Maya's response was measured and professional, reflecting both her confidence in the data and her understanding of the implications for the F-22 program. Yes, sir. The monitoring data clearly shows the harmonic resonance patterns that lead to system failures. We now have definitive proof of the mechanism and enough information to develop effective countermeasures. Colonel Reeves arrived in the Maintenance Control Center within minutes, studying Maya's computer displays with the focused attention of someone who understood both the technical complexity and political significance of the test results. Data provided the first clear explanation for problems that had threatened to determine the entire F-22 program, potentially saving billions of dollars in development costs and preserving America's air superiority capabilities. Captain Mitchell landed the F-22 safely and taxied back to the maintenance area, her relief evident in the relaxed tone of her radio communications. The pilot had experienced firsthand the early stages of the system interactions that Maya's theory predicted, feeling subtle changes in aircraft response that matched the patterns detected by the monitoring equipment. Mitchell's piloting skills and quick reaction to Maya's warning had prevented what could have been a catastrophic system failure. The post-flight debriefing attracted senior officers from across Edwards Air Force Base as word spread quickly that the troublesome F-22 problems had finally been explained and potentially solved. Maya found herself presenting her findings to an audience that included some of the most experienced aerospace engineers and test pilots in the Air Force, people whose expertise and judgment would determine whether her proposed solutions were feasible and effective. Maya's presentation was thorough and methodical, walking through the monitoring data step by step to demonstrate how the predicted system interactions had manifested during the test flight. She explained how the environmental control systems, electromagnetic signatures interfered with flight computer operations under specific load conditions, creating feedback loops that eventually overwhelmed the aircraft's processing capabilities. The technical explanation generated intense discussion among the assembled experts, with questions focusing on both the immediate implications for F-22 operations and the broader significance for future aircraft design. Maya answered each question with detailed references to her monitoring data, demonstrating that her theoretical predictions had been validated by empirical evidence collected under controlled conditions. General Marcus Webb, commander of the Air Force Test Center, arrived during Maya's presentation and listened intently to her explanation of the system failure mechanism. Webb was a former test pilot himself, someone who understood both the technical complexity of modern aircraft and the operational implications of reliability problems. His presence elevated the significance of Maya's briefing, signaling that the F-22 issues had reached the highest levels of Air Force leadership. Maya concluded her presentation by outlining potential solutions to the harmonic resonance problem, ranging from software modifications that would prevent dangerous system interactions to hardware changes that could eliminate the electromagnetic interference patterns entirely. Her recommendations were based on detailed analysis of the monitoring data, with specific proposals for how each approach could be implemented and tested. The room fell silent as Maya finished her presentation, with the assembled experts processing the implications of her findings. Master Sergeant Thompson, who had been among Maya's strongest critics, was the first to speak, his voice reflecting grudging respect for her analytical abilities. Chun, I have to admit that your data is pretty convincing. How confident are you that these proposed fixes will actually solve the problem? Maya's response demonstrated both technical competence and professional humility, acknowledging the complexity of implementing solutions while expressing confidence in her analytical approach. But monitoring data gives us a clear understanding of the failure mechanism, which means we can design targeted countermeasures. The software solution could be implemented and tested within weeks, while hardware modifications would require more extensive development and testing. General Webb asked pointed questions about the broader implications of Maya's findings, particularly regarding other aircraft platforms that might be experiencing similar system integration problems. Maya explained that the specific harmonic resonance patterns were unique to the F-22's particular system configuration, but the analytical techniques she'd developed could be applied to other advanced aircraft to identify potential integration issues before they manifested as operational problems. Colonel Reeves announced that Maya's findings would be forwarded immediately to the Pentagon and to Lockheed Martin's engineering teams, with recommendations for expedited development of the proposed software fixes. The successful identification of the F-22's problems represented a major breakthrough that could preserve the program's viability and restore confidence in America's most advanced fighter aircraft. The technical teams began planning implementation of Maya's recommended solutions, with software engineers working to modify the aircraft's system coordination protocols, while hardware specialists investigated longer-term approaches to eliminating the electromagnetic interference patterns. Maya found herself at the center of these efforts, providing detailed technical guidance based on her comprehensive understanding of the problem mechanisms. Captain Mitchell sought out Maya after the debriefing, expressing both gratitude for the warning that had prevented system failure and admiration for the analytical work that had made the breakthrough possible. The pilot's endorsement carried significant weight within the test community, reinforcing Maya's reputation as someone who combined theoretical knowledge with practical understanding of aircraft operations. The news of Maya's success spread rapidly through Edwards Air Force Base and beyond, with senior officers recognizing that a junior technician had accomplished what teams of experienced engineers had been unable to achieve. The achievement represented vindication for Maya's unconventional approach to aircraft maintenance, demonstrating that fresh perspectives could indeed solve problems that had stumped established experts. Maya returned to her workstation in the maintenance hangar, where she began documenting the test results and developing detailed technical reports that would guide the implementation of her proposed solutions. The work was meticulous and demanding, requiring precise descriptions of complex system interactions and specific recommendations for software modifications that would prevent future failures. Master Sergeant Rodriguez approached Maya's workstation with an expression that mixed professional respect with personal amazement at what the young technician had accomplished. "Chun, I've been working on military aircraft for over 20 years, and I've never seen anything like what you pulled off today. How did you know that your theory would work?" Maya's response reflected both the confidence that came from thorough preparation and the humility appropriate to someone who understood that success often involved elements of both skill and fortunate circumstances. "I spent months analyzing the data patterns and developing theoretical models of how the systems might interact. The test proved that the theoretical predictions were accurate, but it also required Captain Mitchell's skill and everyone's willingness to try an unconventional approach." The afternoon brought a stream of visitors to Maya's workstation, including senior engineers from Lockheed Martin who had flown in specifically to discuss her findings and proposed solutions. The corporate representatives were particularly interested in the analytical techniques Maya had developed, recognizing that her approach to system integration analysis could have applications beyond the immediate F-22 problems. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, Lockheed Martin's chief systems engineer for the F-22 program, spent over an hour reviewing Maya's technical analysis and discussing potential implementation strategies for the proposed software fixes. Warren was impressed by both the thoroughness of Maya's investigation and the elegance of her proposed solutions, noting that the young Air Force technician had identified system interactions that the original design teams had overlooked. The corporate engineering team began working immediately on software modifications based on Maya's recommendations, with parallel efforts to develop and test hardware solutions that could provide longer-term improvements to the aircraft system. Integration. Maya found herself consulting on both approaches, providing detailed technical guidance that would ensure the solutions addressed the root causes rather than just the symptoms of the problems. As the day progressed, Maya received congratulations and recognition from colleagues throughout the base, many of whom had initially been skeptical of her theories and unconventional approach to problem solving. The successful test had validated not just her specific analysis of the F-22's problems, but her entire methodology for understanding complex system interactions in advanced aircraft. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison personally thanked Maya for her persistence in pursuing a solution that others had overlooked, acknowledging that her success had potentially saved both the F-22 program and numerous careers that had been threatened by the ongoing reliability problems. Harrison's recognition was particularly meaningful, coming from someone who had initially been skeptical of Maya's theoretical approach. Colonel Reeves announced that Maya would be receiving official recognition for her outstanding technical achievement, with recommendations forwarded to higher headquarters for appropriate awards and commendations. The recognition represented formal acknowledgement that Maya's contribution had been both significant and valuable to the Air Force's mission capabilities. The evening brought reflection on a day that had transformed Maya from a talented but relatively unknown technician into someone whose expertise was recognized throughout the aerospace community. The successful identification and solution of the F-22's problems represented validation of her decision to pursue aircraft maintenance rather than the more conventional paths chosen by most of her academy classmates. Maya remained at her workstation long after most personnel had departed for the day, continuing to analyze the test data and refine her understanding of the system interactions that had caused so much trouble for the F-22 program. The work was intellectually satisfying in ways that went beyond professional recognition, representing the successful application of analytical techniques that she had been developing throughout her career. The implications of Maya's breakthrough extended far beyond the immediate F-22 problems, suggesting new approaches to aircraft system design and maintenance that could prevent similar issues in future platforms. Her analytical methodology could be applied to other advanced aircraft, potentially identifying and preventing system integration problems before they manifested as operational difficulties. As Maya finally prepared to leave the base for the evening, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment of professional triumph. From her father's small garage to the flight line at Edwards Air Force Base, she had consistently chosen paths that deepened her understanding of how complex machines worked, and that knowledge had finally been validated in the most dramatic and public way possible. Within 72 hours of Maya's successful test demonstration, the Pentagon issued a classified bulletin to all F-22 operational units worldwide, implementing immediate procedural changes based on her findings. The bulletin outlined specific flight parameters that pilots should avoid until permanent software fixes could be deployed, effectively preventing the system failures that had been plaguing the fleet for months. Maya's analytical work had not only solved a complex technical problem, but had also restored operational confidence in America's most advanced fighter aircraft. The rapid implementation of Maya's recommendations represented an unprecedented response time for military bureaucracy, reflecting both the urgency of the F-22 situation and the compelling nature of her technical evidence. Senior Air Force leadership recognized that Maya had provided solutions to problems that threatened to undermine billions of dollars in defense investment and potentially compromise national security capabilities. Her breakthrough had transformed her from an unknown junior technician into someone whose expertise was valued at the highest levels of military and civilian leadership. Dr. Amanda Richardson, the Pentagon's senior aerospace systems analyst, flew to Edwards specifically to meet with Maya and discuss the broader implications of her discoveries. Richardson had spent 15 years analyzing aircraft system integration issues for the Department of Defense, and she immediately recognized that Maya's analytical methodology represented a significant advancement in understanding how complex systems interact under operational stress. The meeting lasted over 4 hours, with Richardson taking detailed notes on Maya's techniques and theoretical framework. Richardson's report to Pentagon leadership emphasized that Maya's approach to system integration analysis could revolutionize how the military evaluated and maintained advanced aircraft platforms. The traditional methodology of analyzing systems in isolation had proven inadequate for understanding the complex interactions that characterized modern fighter aircraft, but Maya's holistic approach provided insights that could prevent future problems and optimize performance across the entire fleet. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency contacted Edwards within a week of Maya's test, requesting detailed briefings on her analytical techniques and their potential applications to other advanced military systems. DARPA representatives were particularly interested in Maya's software tools for monitoring system interactions, recognizing that similar approaches could be applied to naval platforms, ground vehicles, and even space-based systems where multiple complex subsystems had to coordinate seamlessly. Maya found herself presenting her findings to audiences that included some of the most senior technical experts in the American defense establishment, people whose decisions influenced billions of dollars in procurement and development spending. Her presentations were consistently well received, with experts praising both her innovative analytical approach and her practical understanding of how theoretical insights could be translated into operational improvements. Lockheed Martin's executive leadership formally invited Maya to join their advanced systems development team, offering a position that would have provided significant salary increases and opportunities to work on cutting-edge aerospace projects. The offer represented recognition from the industry's leading aerospace corporation that Maya's expertise was valued beyond traditional military hierarchies. But Maya declined the position, explaining that her commitment to military service remained her primary professional priority. The Air Force responded to the civilian job offer by fast-tracking Maya's promotion timeline and assigning her to a newly created position focused on advanced aircraft system integration analysis. The assignment represented the service's recognition that Maya's unique skills needed to be preserved and developed within the military structure, rather than lost to civilian contractors who might not prioritize Air Force operational requirements. Maya's new position included responsibility for developing training programs that would teach other maintenance personnel how to apply her analytical techniques to various aircraft platforms. The Air Force recognized that Maya's breakthrough represented not just a solution to the F-22's specific problems, but a new methodology that could improve maintenance effectiveness across the entire fleet. Her insights into system integration needed to be disseminated throughout the maintenance community to maximize their operational impact. The training program development process required Maya to translate her intuitive understanding of aircraft systems into formal curricula that could be taught to technicians with varying levels of experience and technical background. The challenge was significant, since Maya's approach relied heavily on pattern recognition and systems thinking that couldn't be easily reduced to simple procedures or checklists. Her solution involved creating simulation environments where trainees could observe system interactions under controlled conditions, gradually developing the analytical skills needed to identify potential problems. Captain Sarah Mitchell, who had piloted the crucial test flight, was promoted to major and assigned as Maya's primary liaison with the operational flying community. Mitchell's first-hand experience with both the F-22's problems and Maya's solutions made her an ideal advocate for implementing the new analytical techniques throughout the Air Force's fighter wings. The partnership between Maya and Mitchell represented the kind of technical operational cooperation that military leadership wanted to encourage and expand. The software fixes developed by Lockheed Martin, based on Maya's recommendations, were implemented across the entire F-22 fleet within 6 months, completely eliminating the system failures that had threatened the program's viability. The fixes involved relatively minor modifications to the aircraft's system coordination protocols, preventing the harmonic resonance patterns that Maya had identified while maintaining all operational capabilities. The successful implementation validated Maya's theoretical predictions and demonstrated the practical value of her analytical approach. Congressional oversight committees that had been investigating F-22 reliability issues issued reports praising the Air Force's response to the technical problems and specifically commending Maya's innovative problem-solving approach. The congressional recognition represented political validation for military investment in advanced technical training and analytical capabilities, potentially influencing future defense spending priorities and personnel development policies. Maya received the Air Force Commendation Medal for her outstanding technical achievement, with the citation specifically noting her innovative analytical methodology and its impact on national defense capabilities. The award ceremony was attended by senior Air Force leadership, including the Chief of Staff, who personally thanked Maya for her contribution to maintaining America's air superiority advantage. The recognition represented formal acknowledgement that Maya's work had significance beyond the immediate F-22 problems. The broader aerospace community began adopting Maya's analytical techniques, with civilian aircraft manufacturers and international military organizations requesting access to her training materials and methodological frameworks. The Air Force established formal technology transfer agreements that allowed controlled sharing of Maya's innovations while protecting sensitive military applications and maintaining competitive advantages for American defense contractors. Maya was invited to present her findings at the International Conference on Aerospace System Integration, where her presentation received a standing ovation from an audience that included senior engineers and researchers from around the world. The international recognition established Maya as a leading expert in aircraft system integration analysis, with her methodological innovations being studied and adapted by aerospace professionals across multiple continents. The success of Maya's approach led to its incorporation into the curricula at the Air Force Academy, the Air Force Institute of Technology, and various professional military education programs. Future generations of Air Force officers and technicians would learn Maya's analytical techniques as standard elements of their technical training, ensuring that her innovations would continue influencing military aviation long after her individual career ended. Research institutions began studying Maya's career path and methodological development, seeking to understand how someone with her background had been able to identify solutions that had eluded more experienced experts. The academic interest in Maya's approach led to publications in engineering journals and inclusion of her case study in graduate-level courses on systems, analysis, and problem-solving methodology. Maya established a professional mentorship program for junior technicians, sharing her analytical techniques with the next generation of maintenance personnel while learning from their fresh perspectives and innovative ideas. The program created a feedback loop that continuously refined and improved the analytical methodology, ensuring that it remained relevant and effective as aircraft systems continued evolving in complexity and capability. The F-22 program experienced dramatic improvements in reliability and operational availability following implementation of Maya's recommendations, with system failure rates dropping to negligible levels and pilot confidence returning to historic highs. The aircraft that had been grounded due to reliability concerns returned to full operational status, restoring America's air superiority capabilities and validating the massive investment in advanced fighter technology. International allies expressed interest in adopting Maya's analytical techniques for their own advanced aircraft programs, recognizing that system integration challenges were common across all modern military aviation platforms. The Air Force selectively shared aspects of Maya's methodology through formal alliance channels, strengthening relationships with key partners while maintaining appropriate security protocols for sensitive technical information. Maya's innovations influenced the design requirements for next-generation aircraft platforms, with system integration analysis becoming a mandatory element of all advanced development programs. Her insights into how complex systems interact under operational stress informed design decisions that would prevent future problems and optimize performance, characteristics from the earliest stages of aircraft development. The Defense Department established the Maya Chen Excellence in Technical Innovation Award, recognizing military personnel who demonstrate exceptional analytical capabilities and innovative problem-solving approaches. The annual award ceremony celebrates technical achievements that significantly impact defense capabilities, encouraging other personnel to pursue unconventional solutions to complex operational challenges. Maya continued advancing through military ranks, eventually becoming one of the youngest master sergeants in Air Force history while maintaining her focus on technical excellence and innovative problem-solving. Her career trajectory demonstrated that technical expertise could lead to rapid advancement and significant influence within military hierarchies, encouraging other technically minded personnel to pursue similar paths. The analytical software tools that Maya developed for monitoring aircraft system interactions became standard equipment throughout the Air Force maintenance community, with continuous updates and improvements based on operational experience and technological advances. The tools represented a permanent contribution to military aviation capabilities, providing maintenance personnel with unprecedented insights into aircraft system behavior and potential problems. Maya's story became required reading at military leadership schools, illustrating how junior personnel with innovative ideas could make significant contributions to organizational success when given appropriate support and opportunities. Her case study emphasized the importance of encouraging diverse perspectives and unconventional approaches to complex problems, regardless of the source's position within traditional hierarchies. The transformation of Maya's career from relatively unknown technician to internationally recognized expert demonstrated the potential for individual innovation to create lasting institutional change. Her success inspired other military personnel to pursue technical excellence and innovative thinking, creating a cultural shift that valued analytical capability and problem-solving creativity, alongside traditional military virtues. Years later, as Maya reflected on her remarkable journey from her father's small garage to becoming one of the Air Force's most respected technical experts, she understood that her success had resulted from the intersection of thorough preparation, innovative thinking, and the willingness of senior leaders to support unconventional approaches. Her story illustrated how technical expertise could overcome initial skepticism and traditional barriers when combined with persistence, professional competence, and the courage to challenge established assumptions. The F-22 program that had once faced potential cancellation due to reliability problems became a model for successful system integration and maintenance excellence, with Maya's analytical techniques ensuring continued operational success and capability advancement. Her contributions had not only solved immediate technical problems but had created lasting improvements in how the military approached complex system maintenance and analysis. Maya's legacy extended far beyond her individual achievements, influencing how the entire aerospace community understood and addressed system integration challenges. Her innovative methodology continued evolving and improving through application to new platforms and technologies, ensuring that her insights would remain relevant and valuable for decades to come. The young woman who had once been dismissed as just another mechanic had transformed military aviation maintenance while demonstrating that expertise and innovation could emerge from unexpected sources when given appropriate recognition and support. Maya Chun's story became a testament to the power of analytical thinking, persistent effort, and the courage to challenge conventional wisdom in pursuit of better solutions to complex problems. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.